Well, back out here again. It's almost 50 degrees out. It's unreal. Snow is going away. Now I drove down in, you can see the road that goes along the hillside there with the truck. I'll be lucky to get out. I'm hoping the sunshine, the wind dries things up a little bit and I can get up and out. That's my gamble. Otherwise I'll have to come down here and fish the truck out with the tractor. Now I was working up there last couple of videos, and what you're looking at here is the results of when I was logging back in 2006, 5-6 time frame, I guess. And these trees I had left, and they were small, you know, and now, oh, I don't know, that one there is probably 17 inches, 18 inches. A couple of years it'll be ready. Same with that one, that's about maybe 15. But if you look, there's no ingrown bark, none of that stuff. Now I had left some trees too that I was going to come back for, like that one. I never did, so I should probably take that one down at some point. Not today, but next few days. What I'm going to do is walk through here, and when I see subpar trees like this one right here, I'm just going to take them this time around. Leave the better trees and let them repopulate, you know, grow the volunteers and stuff. So I'm going to put together a little pack of stuff, a little gas, a little bar oil, gloves, wedges, the things that I think I'm going to need for the next hour or two. And then I can walk out and take my time on the trees, not go back and forth to the truck, right? And a helicopter up there somewhere. Then sometime this afternoon, I'm going to hope that road is dry so I can actually drive up and out. Well, this isn't going to work that well. It's designed to hold the camera vertically. I have to hold it horizontally, so we're going to change it and see what happens. I'm also going to stop this and go to a little higher resolution for later on down the road when I want to get some slow-mo. You know, I have to, what it is, it's about frame speed, frames per second. Right now it's at 30 frames per second. So if I go like this, you'll see it sort of stutter. What I'm going to do now is change it to 60. So now we're at 60 frames per second, so it'll be a little smoother. But the file size is so much more. But anyway, let me see if I can get this in here with this new arrangement, which I'm not really liking that much right now. And because I can't see the picture here, I got to kind of guess a little bit. And we'll start with that. All right, what do we want to talk about today? Well, I think what I want to talk about today is saw configuration some. You know, one of the things I had started on the channel for a long time ago was saw repair, saw building and stuff like that. Well, the rhetorical question is, what do you use a saw for? And the last 3 years is when I opened up my world to YouTube to show you what I use my saws for, and that's going to be different than some. And I'm getting older, right? I'm old fart, look at me. But over the years, you sort of evolve what's required to make your life easier. And everyone has a different scenario. If I'm going to go to saw races, the saws that I build for what I do just simply don't fit that world, right? If I was going to go do 10-foot diameter West Coast style trees, my saws don't fit. They fit in my world, what I do here at my age in foot speed and strength and stuff like that. A younger version of me would have wanted something completely different, right? Now, in this truck, I have that big blue saw. I've got my 585. You know, pretty much all the saws that we've talked about over the last few years, right? When I'm close to the work, like if I go down with a tractor and I put the saws in the bucket, this saw or that G395, which is in there somewhere, they're perfect, right? They're a little bit heavier, so they have more power. The weight doesn't hurt me that much when I'm felling, because I'm on the ground anyway, the saw is also being held by the bar in the tree for most of the period of time. So while it is a problem, it doesn't hurt me as much using it. Where the weight bothers me is if I got to go carry it around, like today, if I have to go do a lot of walking. I don't feel like carrying that weight around. But a couple of characteristics of this saw is, again, the standard half wrap versus the full wrap, and bucking spikes on both sides, the bigger ones, because when you're at the steeper angles on the tree, the short bucking spikes don't reach in and get to the bark. You need the longer ones. So it's kind of a blend, right? If I'm going perpendicular to the tree, or I have a shallow cut angle, like a lot of conventional cuts, I don't need those big spikes. Like firewood, you don't need them. But when I'm doing those high angle face cuts, I need those to reach in to grab the tree. So that's why they're important to me. This is my 565, and it works for probably most of the saw work I'm going to do other than felling. You know, I consider this like the ultimate farm saw, and it does not have a bucking spike out there, which is why it's not the best for felling. I ran it and used it this year, but I ran into the situation several times where I really couldn't get a bite, so I had to use just arm strength to push you know, that bar through the hardwood, even with a sharp chain. So while it's lighter, right, and it starts and does all the good things I want it to do, idles and cuts well, because it doesn't have that one bucking spike, it's really not the best saw. But I'm going to leave it because, like, I just used it this morning to cut some of the branches that were down in the way for me to back in here. So to pull a saw out of the truck and just fire it off and do, you know, trail work, cleanup work, you know, firewood type things, best saw there is. Now, I used to work with the 562s, and people would say, well, why would you choose this over a 562? Well, I mean, think about it. It doesn't cost that much more in my world. It's not that much heavier, but it has all kinds of power as compared to a 562 at the lower parts of the RPM range. Peak power, yeah, it's more, but a 562 is a snappy saw. So an older version of me, I'll pick this over a 562 any day, all day, because of its performance and the price point, but also just the utility of it. It's easy to live with. It has things like the 562, like the captured bar nuts and stuff like that. The port for common service tool on these is really easy to get to. It's sitting right on top of the carburetor. Just a lot of things about this saw that are kind of the next generation over the first generation 562s. But I'm saying this because I've had a lot of questions over the years. Would you choose a 562 over this? Now, a younger version of me, I don't know, a hot rod 562 has a cool factor to it. It sounds cool, it's snappy, you know, there's a rasp to it. But a hot rod 562 is not that much more than a stock 565 power-wise. And this is going to last forever. Bigger bearings. It doesn't have stuffers, so the bearings get lubricated better. There's just a lot of things about this saw that don't strike positive in the heart of the online community who are into bling, speed, stuff like that. But for a farm saw, utility saw, highway department saw, you know, even a tree service type saw, a general saw to just do general work, I think this is the best saw in the marketplace for that. And the price is right. So, but not for today, because I'm going to be doing felling. And as I said, that bucking spike on the inside. So he's going back in the truck. This is what I've developed over the years as a wedge driver, and this is a 4-pound axe head that I had picked up for like 15 or 20 bucks, and I found this straight handle. The straight handle works for me a lot better than a curved handle. Now, I built one out of just a cheap, cheesy Walmart axe, and it works fine. This one happens to be a little bit nicer, but be honest with you, looking for the weight. The reason why having an axe head makes a little bit of sense, not just for driving the wedge, but every once in a while I got to use that to chop a saw out of the tree. I don't want to do that today to demonstrate it, but I have. So having an actual axe is sort of a plan B when you're just walking into the woods. So that's coming in with. Now this is the saw that I'm going to run today, and it's been modified since the last time you saw it. It's got a half wrap versus a full wrap. But the reason why I'm using it is because it has the same kind of horsepower the 565 has, maybe a little more. The only thing I don't like about this saw at this point in time is the fact it makes a lot of noise. Now we're going to rectify that, which is going to be completely the antithesis of what people think. But you know, I did the muffler mod. The funny thing about doing the muffler mod is it definitely woke the saw up. It makes a lot more power with the combination of high compression and the muffler mod. But it forced me to put these bucking spikes on. And this is what I'm talking about, evolution. I never would have done that before. But since this pushed where I needed the bucking spikes to be out, I put them on. And when I first did that, if you look back in the videos, they were too aggressive and they would stall the saw real quick. So I modified them. I cut this one back some, probably cut a good ½ inch off it. And what I found was, it's kind of a blessing and a curse, because I modified the muffler the way I did. I had to push the bucking spikes out, so I wasn't using the muffler for a bucking spike, right? But it does exit the exhaust almost in the right direction. I don't get a lot in my face. You know, the ones that exit straight forward to me are stupid, because every time I've done that in the past, all I do is I get it come up in my face when I'm working in the tree. You need to have it away from the work, you know. But when I did these bucking spikes along with that muffler, I found that these bucking spikes, as they are right now, are very useful. So when I bring the muffler back to something quiet, which I will, I'm going to leave these bucking spikes on because they actually help me in my felling operations. So this right here is a pure felling saw for me. And I could put this side cover on the 565 and be just as happy, but I just want to leave it for now. And I'm going to modify the cover on one of these with the captured nuts to have one of these bucking spikes. That would make it even better. That's going to be a modification. But it's my 572 with a half wrap, because that's what it needs. I've been struggling a little bit. I had a load of water in the gas, and it's working its way through. It takes a little time. And I think what I'm going to do today is try to run it the way it is, but I'm carrying a spark plug out with me, because I think what I'll do is, if it doesn't clean itself out, I'll change the spark plug and see whether or not the water has fouled out the spark plug. It didn't look the best. So this is right now one of the better saw configurations for me. It's light enough for me to carry. It's got enough power to pull the 28 in hardwood. And it has two things I don't like about it. For whatever reason, it's a gas hog as compared to the 565. Yeah, it's a gas hog even as compared to the Chinese G395. Yeah, I don't really know why. And I don't know whether or not the muffler has put enough flow through for the auto tune to try to compensate. You know, maybe it is the muffler, which is one of the reasons why I'm going to go back to a more restricted muffler at the expense of some noise and power, see if I can bring some fuel economy back into the equation. But other than that, the fuel usage and the noise, this is a great saw. You know, it really is. So, because, and here's the thing, I could put that side cover on the 565 and go out with a tank of gas and the bar oil and take down, say, 3 trees, 4 trees. This is going to take 2. So, or I could take the G395 with a tank of gas and take down at least 3, possibly 4, at the expense of weight. So here's the dilemma. I'm going to carry bar oil and gas out with me on this saw. So whatever I thought I was gaining with the lower weight, I'm having to carry more supplies with me out in the woods. Think about that for a second. Bar. What I found now is I've gone to these X-Tufts for a couple of years. You've seen them on the channel now for a few years. I get questions all the time. Well, what happened to the light bars? Well, the VersaCut only makes to a 24, and that's not enough for me, right? For firewood, they're great. I tried the Tsujihara. I've had the Zumara bars and stuff like that. The Zumara bars, the ones that had the 4 rivet tips, my customers blew them up and I blew them up. They didn't survive. And it wasn't the bar, it was the tip. For firewood, if you're not doing the bore cutting, those things last forever. That's hard steel. It's good hard steel. And I would recommend them for a lot of people, you know. They weren't that expensive at the time. And same with the Tsujiharas, they last a long time as well. But they survive better than the Zumara for me. They had a stronger tip. They didn't blow up tips as fast as the Zumara did. So for me, if I'm going to be in the woods with a light bar, the Tsujihara version is better than the Zumara version. And I don't know if I pronounced them right. The TSU versus the Tsujihara. The Tsujis last and the Zumaras didn't. And Husky had a light bar for a while. It just didn't work for me at all. It was too flexible. The steel light, I think that's the best bang for buck. I'll say that all day long. Why don't I have one? Well, because I have to adapt it. And what I found is all the light bars, with the possible exception of the steel, they're too flexible for me. And where I found that was I was watching my videos. See, sometimes you can learn things by just watching versus speculating, and listen to other people speculate based on what they have speculated in their own world. Sometimes watching the empirical data, it's a favorite word of mine, really shows you something. And what it did was, when I was pushing into the tree, the way I was pushing would actually make the whole system flex a little bit. So I was always ending up a little bit down on the other side of the tree when I was doing my bore cuts with the light bars, more so than with the stiffer bars. Think about that for a second. You got one hand here and your one hand here, and you're pushing, and basically what you're doing is you got a moment about here. That bar is going to be flexed. And what was happening was it was flexing down, and I'm watching that, I'm like, how the hell does that work? You'll see me now, you'll see me with it angled up a little bit, but when the bar exits the other side, it's actually level with the cut, because there is going to be some flex. But what I found was, with all the light bars, it flexed more than I was willing to be comfortable with, to the point where sometimes I would toss the chain. But also it was unpredictable where it was going to pop out the other side of the tree. So for me, the light bars are not a good solution. And this one here is actually lighter than a lot of the solid bars, this Husky. But it's also way, way, way stiffer than either the Tsujihara or the Zumara based light bars. But it also has a 6 rivet sprocket, and I have yet to see one of those tips fail on these bars. Of course, it'll happen today, right? This bar's got a lot of time on it, as you can tell. So they hold up. They hold up really well. They're stiff, but they're not like overly heavy like some of the cheap solid bars. So I've settled them. They work for me, along with the C85 or C83 chain from Husqvarna, which, by the way, they do. They don't stretch as fast as the Oregons did for me, and that actually matters. You know, instead of me having to get out there and start twisting on the bar nuts to tighten it up before it throws a chain, I can actually get through a tank of fuel, have some trees down before I have to touch those chains. Steel was like that. The old steels didn't stretch that fast, but now the Husqvarnas don't either. So the bottom line for me is, while there's a lot of products that might work, a combination of stiffness, wear, and the success I have, the fact they fit my saws, I don't really see a reason to move away from these X-Tuff Husqvarna bars at this point in time. There's nothing that I've found with any other brand or any other configuration that's a compelling case. In fact, I've evolved to this after looking at a lot of the other options. Now, having said that, My other favorite bar is still the Oregon VersaCut for general farm work. And I don't have one in the truck because these are the true work saws. You know, if I'm going to come all the way down here in the woods and I need to get something done instead of just talking, I want as few variables that can create problems for me as possible. And these 4 saws, by the way, they've just worked for me, so I don't mind carrying them down. It's a good gamble, they don't fail. But this bar and chain combination that I've come up with also works for me, and I would highly recommend them to the folks. And remember, I've evolved here. It wasn't like I had some brilliant flash of light or some marketing expert from somewhere else told me what I needed to do. These are things I've tried. RS chain, I've tried steel brand bars. I like them, by the way. It's just I have to put an extra adapter in there. Too many pieces. So sticking to the bar and chain that fit on the saw, the incremental possible difference I might have with a steel bar isn't worth the fact that I have to add that adapter and add that hassle when I'm doing my day-to-day work. So I went back to, you know, a Husky bar for a Husqvarna saw. And they came out with this line, I don't know, a few years back. They got into a tiff with Oregon. You know, they used to have Oregon manufactured bars with a Husky label. These are their own, and they are better. They are definitely a better bar, and the chain is a better chain than what they used to have. And they've eclipsed what I think the Oregon used to be, which is why I'm here. I used to like the LGX. I used to like the Oregon-based bars. They were a little heavy. I went to the Oregon VersaCuts for farm work. They were nice. But when Husky came out with the X-Tough with the 6 rivet tips, and I started using them, I guess, 3 years ago, 2019, I think it was, 18, 19. Never looked back, you know. And like I said, that's an evolution. Every once in a while I try other things, but you're not going to beat these bars. You're just simply not for the price, you know. The same with that chain. You're not going to beat that chain, not for the price, if you're running Husqvarna. Now I got to tell you, if you're running steel, I'd probably stick with the steel bar for the same reasons. The incremental differences, one versus the other, they make a really good product, and their chain is good, and I like their bars. So I would stick with that brand on those saws. And, so there's my rant. What else do we need to do? So this is a saw I want to run today. Now I am going to probably set up the 565 in this configuration as we get into this, if the winter comes back, you know what I'm saying? But for today, I think this will work for me. And this setup here is what works for me. I don't really care what saw, the 28 bar, the bigger bucking spikes, and the half wrap handle are the hallmarks for a felling saw for these hardwoods for me. So there's that. And like I said, you know, guys will argue up and down. I got one guy all upset when I said that I didn't see the sense in having modded saws. Well, I don't. I really don't. I mean, if you got a good saw like a 572, you know, adding the cost and then adding the stress factors to modding, if you really think about it objectively, just simply don't make much sense. So let me get a little gas. I gotta carry this out with me. These are these Holes Foreman mixing cans, and they do have a seal. See whether or not they actually seal before I put them in anything. I used to carry out glass bottles. Can you believe that? And man, I got a lot of grief for that. And it was. Yeah, they hold. That's good enough. So that's some gas. Wedges. Years back, I used to always carry a zinc wedge, and I kind of got away from it because they were hard to find. I think the only place I know where to get zinc wedges is through the Forester catalog. And I had a situation the other day where I really pinched badly. I was rushing, and I realized that I needed to think wedge. That can get you out of a jam, keeps you from having to go get a different saw. So I'm always going to carry a zinc wedge with me now. Sparking plug. Since I don't have to worry about that full wrap, I can use a standard scrunch, you know. This is a cheese ball helmet, and there's a couple of things I really don't like about it, and like it likes to come apart. Does not endear me, but there's one thing I do like about this helmet that does, and that's it's got a chin strap that works, and it's got to look real funny in a video when I got like here in my jacket, my jaw with that chin strap, right? But I've had situations in the past where I got whacked by a branch, which took the helmet off, only to get whacked on my back, thinking to myself, I'd rather get whacked by the branch and have it keep my helmet on, you know, so the next one that hits you, you still have a helmet on your head. So I've been searching for a good solution, and I'm going to replace this, I don't know, the next month or two with a much upgraded arborist style helmet that also has a face mask and ear protection. But I would highly recommend looking for something along these lines. I prefer the face mask versus the glass. Obviously good hearing protection, but finding one that actually has a chin strap versus just holding it on your head with the earmuffs. So that's coming out. Gloves, safety glasses, and I'm going to put it all in this pack. And bar oil. I've been using, you know, Country Line is the brand that Tractor Supply is their in-house brand. I've noticed now, I don't know if anyone else has, over the last couple of years, they've really increased the quality of what they sell. Some of it's still junk, but I use some of their chains on the small saws, and they actually work pretty good. And their wedges and stuff, and the bar oil works pretty good. I believe they've increased the quality of the stuff that they're sourcing. I think they've evolved. So I'm very fortunate to have a Tractor Supply right down the road. So when I need things like bar oil and, you know, emergency spark plugs, this is, by the way, this is a Stens. So Tractor Supply now takes Stens. They're a fairly famous supplier. They have a lot of the Chinese stuff as well, but basically they tried to kind of go upscale as a distributor. So we're going to try one of these spark plugs. Now you're going to say, well, geez, it's just a spark plug. See, I'm getting off into the weeds here. This is the summation of many, 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 many years of thought. I've had some of the cheaper spark plugs have the electrode break off and rattle around and kill a saw. So all of a sudden it starts running goofy, and you know, what the hell happened? And then you pull it apart and realize that the reason it was running goofy was, number one, it's got a tip bouncing around, busting up the top of the piston. But number two, the spark is arcing from there to the side, so you don't have a decent spark. And then fortunately, usually they stop before they completely destroyed themselves. But so me running this is a risk. I would much prefer using, you know, a Husqvarna labeled Bosch or NGK, whatever they're selling at the time. You know, spark plugs can really matter. So we're going to try that, and we're trying it in the project saw. That's the project saw for me. Remember, that was a junk pile build. So if it rattles around there, I don't care. If I put this in my 585 and it rattles around, I'm really upset. So that's why the 572 gets it. You know, and there's one more thing I'm bringing. chain, not a file. Funny, I did a couple of videos. I did not post them, I never did, where I'd throw a chain or something like that, it would screw it up. And I'm usually getting dark at the time. I don't know what it is about my luck, but usually what happens is when the daylight starts running out and I'm trying to get something on the ground or out of the woods, that's when something breaks. It's not now, when I got plenty of time to sort it out. It's always towards the end of the day. And for me to sit at that point in time, break out a file, that's not where my head's at. I want to finish the task. And by the time I finished filing, and it may not be perfect because you're out in the woods in not good conditions. Why? Just put another chain on the damn thing and continue. So that's the modus operandi I've adapted over the years. I have a 5-gallon bucket full of decent chains because of that. And then what will happen is once I get felling done, I'll do what I always do. I go back to that bucket of chains, start pulling them out, sharpening them up, and using those for breaking down the tops and the firewood and the general farm work, you know. Why use a perfectly good chain brand new out of the box for that kind of junk work, right? You know, I just file up an old chain. But the last, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, I'm not sure how long now, it's getting to be years, I've been doing more felling than farm work, so the stack of chains is beginning to pile up. Same situation, you know. Expendable bag. I'm going to let the camera run for a minute. There sounds like what there is a hoot owl or something up there in the woods. He's making a racket. I don't know if he'll continue. Oh, there's one other piece of equipment that I bring into the woods now. Saw pants versus chaps. That's been huge. Well, of course, I got these a few years back. I did a video on that. So let me see what I've got here. 1, 2, 3, 4 right here, and that's going to be all I'm going to do. Funky looking bore cut than a you know, a low back cut with a bad pull. I did bore cut some of the front out, but I'm going to try to salvage this.